Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah, he confirmed. I don't think I told you. They're doing, they're doing
try to create a pathway for that. Being professional, so we're ready for that.
I'm sorry to cut off the conversation. Everybody says we have to get out of here on time and they keep me to a pretty tight schedule. But welcome to the Rotary Club of Seattle, where we are working to build healthy communities. My name is Jan Levy and I am your current president. As we begin our meeting, I want to acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish, Suquamish, Muckleshoot, and other Coast Salish nations. We acknowledge the displacement of Native communities from this land while honoring the endurance of the Duwamish people who still live here, and we honor with gratitude the land itself. Please be seated. So today we are starting our August focus, which is on civic engagement. We define that as active involvement in the civic life of the community through volunteering and participating in public decision-making while ensuring that all voices are being heard and valued. If y'all voted, you've already been civically participating this month. When I was growing up, civic engagement wasn't even considered an option. Both my parents were civic activists in the civil rights movement, and I grew up with that as an ethic in our household. We were never not allowed to be engaged and involved in my entire youth. Now, as you might have discovered at your table talks, as Rotarians, this is my belief anyway, we are already involved in the active civic life of our community just by being Rotarians. So thank you all for being Rotarians. And thank you for being here today. It's clearly summer. We have a little smaller crowd. And with that, I would like to welcome past President Jimmy Collins to the podium, accompanied by Freeman Fong on piano to lead us in today's song. And they'll be followed by Nancy Cahill, who will lead us in today's inspiration.
Thanks so much, President Jan. We sing at Seattle Rotary to get everyone centered for our meeting. We're all busy folks. We come here from being active in the morning. We're thinking about leaving for our next commitment. But the research shows there's a benefit to having a common activity at the beginning of a meeting. It's my honor to lead this opening, and Freeman Fong is our accompanist to sort of getting your minds ready for the tune. Jan has told us about our theme this month. I think you'll hear some things that make you think about reaching out, about volunteering, about making our world a better place. And how many of you, if I could see a show of hands, are familiar with the 1980s song, We Are the World? Oh, this is a good group. I like this. In a moment, we'll sing it. And for those of you that do know it, please give it your best and help the others learn it as we go. Now, we're not going to do the 7-minute version from YouTube because I'd get the hook. But we are going to center on the Lionel Richie version of this. Dr. Quincy Jones, Seattle's own, and a master instructor at Garfield High School in the music genre. He produced the earliest versions of this. Now, please join with Freeman and me now in We Are the World. And we'll sing the refrain twice at the end. Standing is good. Thank you, Dorothy. There comes a time when we heed a certain call, when the world must come together as one. There are people dying. Oh, and it's time to lend a hand to life, the greatest gift of all. We can't go on pretending day by day that someone somewhere will soon make a change. We are all a part of God's great big family, and the truth, love is all we need. We are the world. We are the children. We are the ones who make a brighter day. So let's start giving. There's a choice we're making. We're saving our own lives. It's true, we'll make a better day. Just you and me. One more time on the refrain. We are the world. We are the children. We are the ones who make a brighter day. So let's start giving. There's a choice we're making. We're saving our own lives. It's true, we'll make a better day, just you and me. As I like to do with volunteers, I'm going to give you a round of applause. Thanks.
You may be seated. Ken Burns is a name that many of you might know from some of the things he's done on public television, and he created a wonderful series on the history of our national parks. He noted that in the late 1800s, there was a growing awareness that the nation's unrelenting rush to conquer the land in its westward movement had come at a terrible cost. Forests had been devastated and species of animals had been ravished, all in the name of progress. John Muir expressed his concern when he spoke of the great wilds of our country, once held to be boundless and inexhaustible, are being rapidly invaded and overrun, and everything destructible in them is being destroyed. There were then a handful of Americans wanting to establish the national park system. And this represented hope that at least some pristine places could be saved before it was too late. Among those concerned few was a young politician named Theodore Roosevelt High School grad here, who would later become president and create a lasting legacy. By the end of his presidency, Roosevelt had created 5 new national parks, 51 federal bird sanctuaries, 4 national game reserves, 18 national monuments, and more than 100 million acres worth of national forests. For our inspiration today, I want to share 2 gems of Roosevelt's wisdom. First, he reminds us that the nation behaves well if it treats the natural resources as assets that it must turn over to the next generation increased and not impaired in value. Then he motivates us further by saying, here is your country. Cherish these national wonders. Cherish the national resources. Cherish the history and romance as a sacred heritage for your children and your children's children. Do not let selfish men or greedy interests skin your country of its beauty, its riches, or its romance. Amen.
Thank you, Nancy. I also want to thank Jimmy and Freeman. I don't know where you went. There you are. Thank you both. Nancy, thanks for the inspiration. I want to also thank Tracy Brown and Cindy Sherrick for greeting today, and to Paul Casey for doing our meeting reporting. I also want to thank a couple of other people. I want to thank Mary Goldie, who's at the back table. Without Mary, none of this happens. She doesn't get thanked enough. And I want to thank our AV guy back here, because I couldn't do it without him either. We have a number of guests here today. Will those visitors who are with us please stand and be recognized? Thank you all, Mike Flynn, and I don't know all your names, but thank you all for being here with us, including our guest from India, who is with us today from the Rotary there. One thing that I know that all of us can agree on is that members are the lifeblood of Rotary. I have this fantasy that I'm going to be the first president in a long time to end the year with a net positive number in new members. However, to get there is going to take every one of us. And I would like to welcome Sue McNabb to the podium, our VP of Membership, so that she can tell us what we're going to be doing for membership this year. Sue?
This is my co-captain here, Miss Jen, and props have been provided by Mr. Steckler, who finally arrived after whatever he was sailing from.
You
I'm
can't
not
do
sure.
that next year.
No, you can't. Okay. All right. Ahoy and avast, me hearties. Today's short journey is about something that is near and dear to all of us, membership. Today, we launch the Good Ship membership, headed towards growing the membership of Seattle 4. It's a trip with great ports of call. We've got challenges for service, opportunities for leadership and networking, a number of adventures, of course, of fun along the way. Certainly, time ashore to serve our community, circumnavigating the world through global citizenship, and a motivation to have a different kind of conversation with friends, relations, and those people at work than you've had before. We're sailing towards 1+1. And that is a challenge of club membership growth to our admiral, hardworking admiral, Jan, goal of at least 300 and net positive. So 1+1 stands for every person of our Rotary Club recruiting one new member. It'd be great if we end up with 600, but that's okay. So here's the sailing directions charting our way. Every club member brings a new member to us this year, 1+1. Now, over here is Doug, who is invisible because he's in traffic. Doug will be in charge of corporate membership, and he's looking for crew. And so if someone would like to work with him on defining corporate membership and bringing it back, he has a goal of 10 corporate members by the end of our program year. And my fellow captain here, Jen, will talk about social presence.
So one way that we need to reach these corporate people is by navigating the waters of social media. And I am not asking you to go out and write your own posts or do anything crazy there, but I am asking you to reshare everything that we post. We have to make sure that we remain relevant in this really technologically heavy space. So I love all of you all, but we need more younger members. So we need to get the next generation of executives in place in here, and they need your mentorship. That's the really important piece of it. We're not cutting you out of the piece of pie. We just need you here so that they can come to you for expertise and advice that you all give to me every time that I ask. So if I find that you are looking at my social media posts and you are not reposting them, then you have to take me out on your boat. And all I know is port and starboard. I can't even tell you if someone's going to hit us, but I'll bring goat cheese and wine as long as you do what we've asked.
I can tell this cap came from Stuckler. I think his head's a little bigger than mine. Anyway, okay. So prizes will be offered for great seamanship to be determined. Challenges on the high seas of recruitment are ahead, and everyone participates. Think 1+1. You'll be given practical tools to work with throughout the year to do this. So be thinking about who you'd like to sail with at lunch the rest of the year on the Good Ship membership, and we'll be offering support and adventure on the voyage ahead.
Thank you, Sue. Let's get rolling. Bring in your members. Everybody knows somebody that they can bring to a Rotary meeting. Bring them. I'll talk to them. I'll do whatever I need to do. Well, not quite. At this point, it's my pleasure to bring up past President John Bridge, who's going to introduce today's speaker. So thank you.
Well, thank you, guys. I love the idea of this, of bringing new members on board. And remember, what I was trying to do last year is to bring all of our speakers to be new members, and to we have one old member who is really quite young, who I'm going to make sure rejoins our Rotary group. So we'll have a couple new members very soon. And my wife is telling me to keep going here today. And I also it's a crazy thing. I got this deal from Mary Goldie too, that told me I better hurry up and do a short introduction because I'm wasting everybody's time here. All right. So between my wife and Mary, I'm in trouble. But I have the honor today to introduce to you Jodi Sandfort, who joined the Evans School in January of 2021 as the Dean of Public Policy and Governance of that school. At the Evans School, she leads a staff and faculty overseeing the operation of nearly $14 million in budget. We hope that that will continue. One never knows these days. Dean Sandfort brings a background in human-centered design that is helping the school to center community voice in policy and implementation. She's led the creation of the Evans Policy Innovation Collaboration that provides a platform for engagement and innovation. And she's currently co-leading the University of Washington initiative that focuses on our public universities' critical role in strengthening democracy and civic health. Really important today, very important today. She is formerly a professor at the Humphrey School of Public Affairs at the University of Minnesota, where she was the founder of the Future Services Institute that supported government redesign of programs and services. She's currently a member of the steering committee of the Volcker Alliance Dean's Forum and just stepped down from a nationally elected position on the Executive Council of the Network of Schools of Public Policy and Public Affairs. She earned her Bachelor of Arts in History and Women's Studies from Vassar, where our son graduated, and our granddaughter is now a freshman. Rising, yes, my wife is saying a rising sophomore. She did finish her first year positively. And Jodi also has an MSW and a PhD in social work and political science from the University of Michigan, where my wife also has 2 degrees. This is really something. Anyway, without further ado, I will step down and let you, thank you, and let you hear from Jodi.
I love in this town whenever you're introduced by either of the bridges. It is a true honor. My name is Jodi Sandfort, and I have the great privilege of being the dean, as John was saying, at the Evans School at the University of Washington. And I really appreciate the opportunity to come before you today, particularly as Jan said, because you're talking about civic engagement, because I really think that there is no more important topic to be talking about in July, August, I guess, of 2025. Clearly, these days, we are at a place in time when there's a lot of confusion, discussion, wondering about what is it we're about together as a company, as a country. And when we think about public policy, my school has public policy and governance. And in the news in the last year or two, we are reminded all the time of the importance of public policy. If you think there's been debates about the quality of the weather information that's coming on our telephones, debates about the national parks and whether or not they're a legitimate form. We're having debates about whether or not we want to bring students from across the world, from India and elsewhere, to our universities to study. These are all examples of public policy. Public policy really shapes our life. Governance, which is really how we organize ourselves to get things done, we're seeing almost nightly in our news feeds debates about what's the appropriate role of Congress, the presidency, the Supreme Court, the relationships between the federal government and the states, all the brouhaha that's happening right now in Texas about who has a legitimate place to determine the elected officials. Now, for academics, it's in some ways not surprising that we are talking about public policy and governance. A lot of people have been documenting for years, and I think this club knows well, there has been a decrease in people's engagement in civic life. An academic calls it bowling alone, Robert Putnam. And it really is because there's so many forces that have pulled people away from participating in groups like these. I've been thinking about it more and more as if we are living in a fragile democratic house. And I'll tell you, all of these events are actually making me love my country more and being more patriotic in a different way. I'm really focused on how do we respond to people's sense that things aren't working and create the democracy that we need rather than the democracy that we've had. And so that's really what I want to talk to you about today. In my field of public policy and governance, we've been thinking about this problem of what is the democracy we need for a long time. This is a picture of the Parrington Hall on the University of Washington campus. And we became a school way back over 60 years ago when the progressives were trying to think about how do you administer public programs more efficiently and more effectively. And in the 70s, when the Great Society expanded the role of the federal government, universities said, we need to bring more people into this field. But what the decision in the field at that time was to make people more analytical, using applied statistics and econometrics, and thinking that what plagued us was needing to have technical solutions to problems, that we needed to have more analysts. And it didn't take so long for people in some universities, like the University of Washington, to say, Actually, we can't lose sight of civic connectedness, politics, implementation. And now I think we are at a new moment where at the University of Washington, we're saying schools like ours and the university overall has to be paying attention to civic health. It's a little bit like Jan was saying. She never thought that we'd have to have a whole session about civic engagement at Rotary because it was just what happened. But now it is clear that somehow we've lost our way as a country in our ability to come together across difference. Now, it's important, I think, for us to be real when we talk about the democracy we need rather than the democracy we've had. In my field, we're trying to be real about what has been and what is unfolding and what can be in the future. And while there has been a persistent tradition in this country of ignoring some inequities that were created by unchecked markets, or histories of extracting resources from the Pacific Northwest, or a history of racial division, there's also been an equally persistent movement to make our country better, to come together, talk across difference, pursue equity, pursue justice. And in academics, we talk about this as public values. And I think what's happening now is that these public values are all twisted up. And we have to realize that it is fine to have debates between equity and efficiency, between justice and tolerance and fairness. But the role of public square is to have those debates, and that by having those debates, we get better. And so one of the things that concerns me is when we have an environment where people are being fired, like we saw last week, for providing routine jobs information to the country. That is a concern. It's easy, I think, to despair when you're seeing all of these news things come across that really makes you feel more tangled up like we see here. But I do think John mentioned that I'm a history major, and so I've been taking great solace in realizing that our country has been in these places before. And in fact, I've really tried to understand how do people use these moments to strengthen our democratic house and to really invest in what we need to do together. So I'm sure I'm not alone in this room in reading Heather Cox Richardson, who is a historian who comes out with a daily blog. I'm really interested in her for kind of a geeky reason. She is writing her daily documentation of the events because she's trying to document for a graduate student in 100 years what actually happened. So it's kind of a weird thing to do. I kind of thought she had a whole team of people. No, this is literally a history professor sitting in a room with one graduate student. It's quite amazing. So earlier this summer, Heather took me back to the 1950s. Some of you in the room were alive then. I was not. There was rampant concern in the public domain about communism, right? And Joe McCarthy, and Heather Cox Richardson, quoted a Republican senator, Margaret Chase Smith, and she was reflecting on the national condition in June 1st, 1950. And she said, quoting here, "It's a national feeling of fear and frustration that could result in national suicide and the end of everything that we Americans hold dear. Those of us who shout the loudest about Americanism are all too frequently those who, by our own words and acts, ignore some of the basic principles of being an American." Now, Senator Smith despised Harry Truman. He was a Democrat. But she did say, quote, "As an American, I condemn a Republican fascist," talking about McCarthy, "just as much as I condemn a Democratic communist. They are equally dangerous to you and me and our country. As an American, I want to see our nation recapture the strength and unity it once had when we all fought the enemy instead of ourselves." So in reflecting on this now, an independent Maine Senator, Angus King, this spring, was thinking about this, and he said, "I think we're at a similar point in American history. Today's crisis should not be viewed as a partisan issue. This is not about Democrats or Republicans, or immigration, or tax policy, or even the next set of elections. Today's crisis threatens the idea of America and the system of government that has sustained us for more than 2 centuries. I think he's right. So, using my analogy of a house, I want to be very clear that I really think that what we're experiencing now is an attempt to demolish that house. In the last 7.5 months, the Executive Office of the President has been attempting to consolidate power in 106 executive orders. There's widespread agreement that this is not about a partisan move, but it's an attempt to create chaos. It's an attempt to make the American people believe that the office of the president has more power than it actually does. And yet our Constitution clearly establishes the separation of powers between the president, Congress, and the Supreme Court. And there's important vested authority in state governments, in local governments, because our democratic house is designed for resiliency. And yet, this design really depends on people like y'all coming together to address the problems, things that we can't do by ourselves. We need to lean in, all of us, and really focus on creating the plans and implementing the programs to significantly renovate our democratic house. I actually think in some places we need to go down to the studs. We need to see where the structural inequities are, where there's integrity and where there are faults. And to me, it all hinges on things you know well, which is about how do you create more civic trust? How could we, for example, build integrated and secure data sets that actually improve the delivery of public services rather than enable surveillance? How might we give people an experience of getting their needs met without red tape and without a demoralizing process? How might we actually disagree better and see that disagreement as, and the compromises it requires, as something what it means to be in the legacy of the democratic leaders that have established and led this country from all walks of life? So at UW and at the Evans School, we have been working to figure out how can we help? How can we design a civic health initiative that really is a blueprint for how the flagship public university can be involved? So we're doing a few things. We're strengthening public institutions. We're trying to clear the paths for civic participation. And we're really trying to prepare the next generation of civic-minded leaders. So I want to share a few concrete examples so you can let me know if I'm walking my talk. First, we're leaning in to support people who already are working in state and local government. Elected city leaders from across the state, from across the party. When we invited them, they said yes to learn about, believe this or not, collaborative leadership. In partnership with the Ruckelshaus Center at WSU and the Association of Washington Cities, we launched the Washington Collaborative Elected Leader Institute. But what it does is it brings these elected leaders together and asks them, what motivates you as a public servant? And ask them to tell each other those stories. And when people sit and listen to each other and say, hey, why are they taking their time to serve their cities? People realize they have more in common than they have apart, and that they can disagree, and that makes the policies and the programs better. We also have had resounding success with this very simple program. 2024, we started it, and 96% of the people who participated, about 50 people, said it made them be better leaders, and that this cohort experience demonstrated that they could grow and change. We also said yes to state agency leaders when we offered to teach them human-centered design. We launched a graduate certificate, and we gave them new tools to be part of the change and the improvement in state service. So we had 40 participants from 8 public agencies, and they came together and they tackled real world problems like the healthcare authority team. They designed and implemented a whole communication strategy around robocalls and social media, texting, to help people on Medicaid learn more so they don't lose their benefits. They weren't getting this in kind of their daily training and operation because we haven't invested in the people who are trying to do the public sector work in the way we should. I also think we have to look at the structures that are supporting the public domain. When things were set up in Washington state, like a state constitution with no income tax and local boards that have very limited authority, it was a different context. So what does this current environment demand of us so that we can retrofit our building to respond to this time? At UW, we've created a design build firm that's drawing on research, but trying to work in partnership with leaders in real time. Because Washington state has passed incredibly progressive policies, but we don't actually implement them very well. And so we're trying to help. We worked with the state, we passed a paid family medical leave act and hadn't thought at all about how do you reduce the wait time for people on the phones and how do you work with nonprofits that are already working with families. We've dug into that. We've been working with the Secretary of State. We've been just trying to roll up our sleeves and be part of the solution. One of the things that I've liked quite a bit is work we've been doing with the Lieutenant Governor. He has been, Denny Hecht, in the public domain for many, many years and is deeply concerned about the state of things. And so we've brought people together to say, what does it take to be part of this solution? And I would invite this Rotary Club to join our movement and just sign the pledge in terms of basic principles that we want to say people in Washington really care about respectful dialogue and action. I want to be clear, though, higher ed has become a target in this political space. Really, I think because of our focus on both evidence and freedom of speech, engagement and hope. Historically, universities and today, I would argue, have played an important role in civic life, but there is a campaign to be talking about civic debateness as wokeness. And like other institutions, misinformation has spread to erode trust that citizens have in us. The fundamental value of higher ed, I would say, is and what it's always been at the foundation of the country. It's trying to fuel a culture of innovation. And really, we've created something that has been the envy of the world. But right now, it's being called into question with a business model of research universities actively under attack. I think that the future could not be more, the stake of the future couldn't be more important. The first-year college students that are in our classes were born, get this, in 2007. They were 10 years old when the first Trump administration started. They were 13 when COVID hit, and they were 14 when January 6th happened. Okay? There's so much they do not understand about the history of this Democratic House and how we got here. And yet the irony is they think globally. They're used to be plugged in. They're used to being connected to multicultural communities. And when we invite them, these pictures are from a policy camp that we had at St. Paul Central for kids at community college. They really want to understand what to do. So we've leaned into undergraduate programs. We have a next-gen civic leader corps. We have a new undergraduate major in public service and policy. But I was saying to Jan before we started, part of why we're doing this is we can't just assume that the next generation of young people are going to understand civic health or civic engagement. It's not going to just happen. So these images are some of these young people. The top is the kids who came down with us to Renton to engage 200 people from across the state of Washington with the lieutenant governor when we were trying to dig into civic health. and figure out what concretely could we do, and new programs and initiatives were born from that. The others are when they're actually talking to real elected officials to figure out what actually happens. So to me, we're trying to help them say, listen, the civic thing is about listening. It's about finding what we have in common. And when we disagree, doing so respectfully. Because I really think we have a lot of soul searching to do. As a country, I think we have to make a fundamental decision. Do we want to demolish the Democratic House or get serious about this significant renovation project ahead? 2024, as some of you know, marked the passage of Dan Evans, former governor here, who is our school's namesake. And for me, in the time I got to know him, he really exemplified civility, mutual respect, and principled leadership. So I wanted to quote part of his autobiography that I think is relevant to my comments. He said, civic, city, civil, all come from the same word, civis, Latin word, meaning member of a community, citizen. He said, if we're to succeed as a great city, then we must all be members of this community. If we're to be true citizens, then we must do more than vote. We must continue active participants in the civic arena. Once again, let us engage in civil debate. Once again, let us join together in the generosity of volunteerism. Once again, let us seek progress jointly rather than obstruction separately. Leadership must come from those who have the vision to see tomorrow, the intelligence to plan wisely, and the civility to listen to others. So in any renovation project, I think it's really important to pay attention to the things that are beautiful, that have existed, and try to make them better. So this odd image, you're like, why is she showing me a picture of a window? Is part of our school. It's part of the 125-year-old building I showed at the beginning, and it used to leak horribly, horribly. And when they did the renovation, they had a decision. Should they just rip it all down? But actually what they did is they took the grace of the old and built on that function to make something new, which is this beautiful classroom we now have. And so I'll just say that although public institutions are battered right now, when we bring people together and set the conditions for learning, for inquiry, and for engagement, it's really powerful. So the work ahead is significant. Like, I think we're at this moment, it really is going to involve all of us. But I think we have to invest both in the people that are working in the public sector. We need to retrofit the House, support leaders like this community who are coming together around civic aims, and really bring our intellect and our resources to that. Because we have to practice doing together things that are about tolerating difference, because that's always what's allowed the United States to thrive. Because far from perfect, our multiracial, multi-ethnic democracy has literally been a beacon for the world. And I have come to see that patriotism is the efforts we are taking to make this democratic house stronger, even in the face of significant efforts to demolish it. We need to create the democracy we need rather than what we have. And I think we have to do it together because we cannot wait. The time is now. Thank you so much. That's very, very touching.
Thank you. We have some questions. We have some time. We'll start right here. And anyone else, let me know.
Jodi, before I went into engineering at the UW, I considered communications journalism at WSU. We could talk for an hour on this, but can you share a few thoughts on what we as individuals can do in the face of eroded journalism and alternative facts?
This is a major driver of what we're experiencing in the society. It is clear that there are algorithms that are feeding us things in social media that are creating separate and distinct media ecosystems that we are consuming. So this question about what do we do in the face of that is one that this civic health initiative we're spending a lot of time on thinking about. There are 3 things I think we can do. 1, keep coming to Rotary. And I mean that quite seriously. I wouldn't say Rotary, but I'd say it in any group. Engage civically with people who might be in a different media bubble than you, right? Because we need to hear that there are people who we respect who are being told different things and drawing different conclusions. Number 2, I think we have to think about how important is it to find ways that we can communicate things that are of value to us. So one of the things that is kind of blowing the minds of the researchers at UW and across the country is that we all have access to much more information than we have ever had at any other time in human history. And yet we can't make sense of it all. And the fuel of misinformation is very significant. And so having conversations, again, with a diverse array of people is a really critical thing you do, because we haven't quite seen what is the new media ecosystem that's going to come. And then the third thing I would say right now, make a donation to public radio. I didn't even know. I mean, I'm actually a KNKX person, not a, okay. Because, right, that has been a significant source of journalism and unbiased reporting that now in the media ecosystem has been thrown under the bus, and significant financial challenges to them. Yes, I should say public media.
Hi, Dean, over here. I want to share with you, as you know, the end of the Vietnam War on April 30th opened the door 50 years ago for Dan Evans, your namesake, to invite thousands of South Vietnamese to come to this state. First state in the nation, still the 3rd most in the nation. It seems to me that it's a perfect time. There's a lot of stuff being written about Vietnam now because the months following that have had a lot of media attention. A perfect time for the Evans School to maybe lead the way. There needs to be some lasting memorial to him for that.
That's a really powerful idea. Thank you.
Jodi, I'll make a transition from that last comment about journalism. I heard an article on NPR this week, KUOW, about the collaboration between your school and the College of Built Environment. And you referenced it quickly. I wonder if you could tell us something about what you see there that might inspire us.
So there are many collaborations. John was just asking me about a collaboration we're doing with social work and education. Were you talking about the Housing Futures Center? Okay. I hope what would inspire you is to know that we have literally some of the best minds in the world at the University of Washington, who are all very committed to being of service to the communities in this state and region and the country. This is an example of this state has struggled a long time to get their head around housing and to really realize that so much of our homelessness problem is because housing is so expensive. But the way we've solved it has been the legislature will bring in a consulting firm, they'll do an analysis and they'll leave, and then they'll 2 years later bring in a different consulting firm. We have some of the best minds on this in the country, and so we're coming together across our schools and saying, let's bring it together and let's create a Housing Futures Center. We're not going to tell the policymakers what to do, but we really want people to have a common set of information to look at when they're trying to figure out really hard choices. So we've launched that this summer. We're doing some other work around youth who have behavioral health issues. We're doing some other work around the criminal and juvenile, the justice system. So we're trying to be of help and trying to activate the best minds at the university to do that in our own work to be a support for the civic health we need.
We actually ran out of time and we had, look at, there's 5 more questions. Just know that we have a lot of questions for you. So thank you. But
I will be here for a while.
thank you.
Thank you, Jody. I hope we get civic education back in K through 12 schools. That's my hope. The Evans School is critical to the region. We are so appreciative of your leadership. And as a thanks for your participation today, our club's foundation, the Seattle Rotary Service Foundation, has provided 600 servings of healthy produce to those in need through Harvest Against Hunger. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you to all of you who donate to SRSF, which allows us to provide this donation.
Thank
Thank you so much. Thank you. I also want to thank Sue McNabb, Sailor Sue, wherever she left. Let's go sail those members into our club, okay? Thank you also to our day program sponsor, Dorothy Bullitt. Thank you to Carl Benke. Yeah, that's worth an applause. Thank you to Carl Benke and REB Enterprises for your sponsorship, to Bloodworks Northwest, and to Baird, all for sponsoring our club. I believe there are a few announcements. Nicole?
Okay. All right, I'll go slower this time. Sorry. After all, I'm running the clock, so I can take as long as I want. Okay, so this is helpful. So you're hearing it out loud. There is no meeting next week. Your Wednesday is free, but we have a Tuesday morning scheduled to meet with Mary and whoever else wants to show up. There's no RSVP needed for Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. at the Fonte Cafe Bar. I don't know where that is. Second floor of the Rainier Building. Second, we have Wednesday, August 20th. That will be our next time we meet in person, and this is one of those 4 that we won't be here. We'll be at the Motif Hotel, and we have 2 special guests that our own Mark Wright will be interviewing, Phyllis Campbell and Deanna Oppenheimer. We are going to, have a panel discussion, and we hope to start the day with affinity tables. So when you came in, there was a little poster board that you guys could put 1 or 2 tables of interest. Oh, Mary's holding it up. So if you don't pick the kind of interest table you want, we'll put you in a table, like I said. So I don't know if you want that. I picked parenting and I don't know why I picked that one. So I don't know if I want to talk about it. And the final announcement we have is the August 30th Zoom only lunch. And so be sure and register for all of these online. And this one's free. It's a good one if you have someone you want to bring to a Rotary meeting but doesn't have the time to come, have them visit us online. And it'll be the CEO of Seattle Foundation, Alicia Washington, and she'll be talking about many of the things we talked about today: affordable housing, transit, childcare access, and our community impact that the foundation makes. So that's it for today.
Thank you, Nicole. When I was thinking about civic engagement for today's meeting, as I said earlier, I realized that part of being a Rotarian is being engaged in the community. So I decided to look up the meaning of the word Rotarian and just see what would come up. And here's what I found. A Rotarian is a person who digs wells from which they will never drink. A person who vaccinates children they will never meet. A Rotarian is someone who restores sight for those they will never see, who builds houses they will never live in, who educates children they will never know. A Rotarian plants trees under which they will never sit, who feeds hungry people regardless of race, religion, or politics, who makes crawlers walk half a world away, who knows real happiness. As Albert Schweitzer said, real happiness can only be found by serving others. Thank you all for joining us. I'll see you August 20th, and we are adjourned.